Hello, everybody, and welcome to our
Well,
podcast episode. We have Stephanie Czuhajewski from ADA with us today, and I'm Dr. Lindsay Coble.
Dr. Noel Crosby.
And
Welcome.
today we're introducing something new, and it's a topic, it's called Be Curious. We are going to introduce one little short topic every episode that we do of something that we think is worth looking into. Today we've decided to highlight Dr. Angela Alexander's APD 20-minute episode that you can get access to if you reach out to her on LinkedIn. She has a tool that you can use to help you identify auditory processing disorder in adults in your clinic. It's a really quick listen and it is super clinically applicable. And we think all of you should look up Dr. Angela Alexander from the Auditory Processing Institute and check out that tool.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's going to be really helpful in our practices. The other thing that we're going to be adding moving forward is we're going to have a word for the week that we're going to use and that portrays our subject that we're talking about. So since we have Stephanie from ADA on, we are going to use the word today, persistent. Because ADA has been nothing but persistent for, I would say, years trying to get this legislation passed. And it seems like every time we move forward, we move back a step. And I feel like with some of the subjects that she's going to share with us today, that seems to be happening again. And so, what can we do to not let that happen? And we just need to be persistent. So, the word for today is persistent.
Such a good word, Noelle. So, Stephanie, let's kick it off. Can you tell us a bit about your background and what led you to become the executive director of ADA?
Sure, happy to do that. I think I am also persistent in that regard. I've been with ADA since 2008, believe it or not. So I'm starting to get the hang of it. It's been a little bit. And I am persistently here, and I have no intention of going anywhere, at least until this legislation is passed, Noel. So let's get that
Yeah.
done for sure. Um, there really isn't a like college track, let's say, for association management, really. So most people that get here fall into it in some form or fashion. And that is how I got here also. I actually got a degree in business management. I was working for a kind of in a for-profit, non-profit partnership at an airport.
Mm.
I was doing community service or community outreach for them, right? And then September 11th, 2001 hit. And that sort of changed the trajectory of my career. It made it a lot less fun, let's say,
Right.
marketing and community outreach for the
Mhm.
airport. And it wasn't as necessary, frankly, because no matter what we were doing, people weren't flying, at least at
Mhm.
so at that point, I pivoted and did just nonprofit work for charities for a
Mhm.
long time. And then I sort of fell into the association management world and I never looked back. I
Mhm.
found ADA again. They found me and I found them in 2008. And I was just so attracted to the group of people that are ADA members right from the beginning. So at that time, you might remember Dr. Crosby, Dr. David Berkey was the president, and Dr. Charlie Stone was the president-elect. And
Okay.
they're
Yeah.
the ones who hired me and brought me in. And I think what attracted me the most was the private practice focus. As a small business owner myself, I own an association management company. So it just made real sense to me. And this idea of autonomous practice in any practice setting.
Mhm.
So those being kind of fundamental to ADA, and I just felt really aligned with them. I thought it was a great fit then, and I still think it's a great fit for me. Hopefully the board feels the same.
Yes.
Good run.
Very interesting. So when you say 2008, I feel like you've been there forever.
Yeah.
Like way before 2008, because whenever I think of ADA, I think of you. And so that's interesting that it wasn't until 2008 that you came on board. But that's also, I feel like when ADA took a new direction where there was much more advocacy than before, do you think that's
Right.
kind of when things changed?
Yes, I do. And I think that it was really from the onset of our working together, I think that became the focus. And I think it's a necessary focus because if you look at audiology as an aspiring clinical doctoring profession in the sense that it's much younger maybe than some of its counterparts in dentistry and optometry and others, right? That there was so much advocacy work that needed to be done to sort of help audiology achieve its full potential as a clinical doctoring profession.
Mm-hmm.
And while ADA doesn't have, certainly we're not the only ones advocating in this space, I think what we brought to the table is this real sense of independence and the need for independent practices to succeed. So the way that I see it, independent practice is sort of the bellwether for the success of the profession on the whole. And in a little bit, sometimes it's the canary in the coal mine. So if independent practice isn't succeeding in the short run, because they get impacted first when things happen, I think it really has a negative impact or a positive impact, depending on what that situation is, on the profession as a whole over the long run. So the way I view it, private practice is the most essential to the success of audiology, and it's the most essential place where we need to be advocating, even for audiologists who don't find themselves in a private practice setting, candidly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The opportunity to have that as one of the pathways is so important.
Absolutely.
So important. And to have that autonomy. I know you guys have all heard me talk about I feel like younger audiologists are kind of seeking the private practice autonomy, and just to keep that going and fuel that fire, I think is so important. Stephanie, what would you say are the Academy's top strategic priorities for the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I hope
Heavy hitter.
we're done. I hope we're done in 3 to 5 years. In 2024, ADA brought forward, it's kind of a wheel of opportunity is what I call it. And this is called Audiology 2050. And this is really what our focus is going to be for the next 3 to 5 years, or maybe the next 25 years, depending on how long some of these things take. And it really looks at audiology holistically with patient well-being at the core, and then the audiologist's well-being, and then it branches out from there to look at all of the different things that we have to do. Now, of course, getting practitioner status under Medicare is one of the things on this 7-part wheel. It is a top priority for ADA. Modernizing audiology scope of practice at the state level, I would say, is equally important. And then looking at reimbursement and the schema of reimbursement. So the two most important things for audiologists, as in any clinical doctors, would be what? Licensure, scope of practice, and reimbursement, getting paid fairly for what you do. So looking at those two prongs, we've kind of built out all of the things that have to happen in order to sustain those, including, things like being preceptors and making sure that future doctors of audiology are professionally and socialized in a way that will help them be the best doctors that they can. It's looking at the educational model and thinking, how can we help fix some of the gaps that are there? And I think really from a private practice standpoint, the most leverage that our members have is really as their role as preceptors. So if there's something that we don't like, perhaps as a community, that's going on with the educational model, or if we see places where that can be improved, we have a lot more leverage, I think, than we think we do by virtue of being those preceptors, both in how we train up and mentor those students, but also in how we hold the universities accountable for making sure that they've received the education and training that they should have before they're coming into our practices. So I think that's a really important part. Making sure that audiologists are activists within their profession. Do I want everyone to be an ADA member? Yes, I do. But more importantly, I want everyone to be a member of their state association. If there was no other message that people take away from our discussion today, it's in order to effectively advocate, you have to belong and become active at the state level. And so I think that's something that's starting to really resonate with people. Not that it hasn't a little bit always, but I think getting bigger segments of audiology to understand that what they do at the state level affects everything else in their practice. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's interesting because, we're getting ready to have the Florida Academy of Audiology meeting. And me, as president of the Florida Academy of Audiology, we don't find that people are really getting that message. There's still so many people that still need to join, and they wonder, well, why do I need to join? And what do you do for me? So, we're looking at how can we do a better job relaying that information. So my next question to you would be, how does ADA differentiate itself from other professional organizations and how you relay this type of information, et cetera?
Sure. Well, ADA has always very proudly been a niche organization, right, with a niche focus on advancing evidence-based practices on the business side and clinical side of how audiology services are delivered, and then also with that focus on autonomous practice. So we've had the distinct pleasure of sort of instigating a lot of things and being persistent about them until they come through, right? If we're going to use that word today. But things like the entire AUD movement. Going back 40 years to ADA's inception, it was really about being able to dispense and sell hearing aids for profit as a provider, as an audiologist. And at that time, there were so many competing pressures and priorities and other thoughts about whether that was not an ethical thing to do. And I think it really took the founding and formation of ADA to really move forward private practice audiology, because it really couldn't have happened as effectively without being able to holistically help that patient by also dispensing hearing aids, right, when they're necessary. So I think that ADA provided a very foundationally, at its core, the great platform for private practice. And I think we've sort of run with that ever since. So we see that really as our niche, but from time to time, we've also had to be a kingmaker and a spoiler for some of the other bigger organizations in terms of holding them accountable. And I think that that's really important because I don't think that always private practice or autonomous practice is at the forefront of every organization, and it can't be if you're an umbrella organization. But our role is really to make sure that those interests continue to be protected.
Yeah.
What would you say, like kind of along the same lines, what would you say is ADA's role in advancing private practice, especially in the changing market? We've talked about managed care plans and being profitable, and where do you think ADA falls and sees private practice going forward?
I think two things. I think advocacy is certainly first and foremost our role. So ADA is doing a lot of different things in that area, including working with our colleagues broadly at the American Academy of Audiology and the American Speech Language Hearing Association on the Medicare Audiology Access Improvement Act, which is something that has required and will require continued persistence until it's over the finish line. But we're getting there. We're making a lot of progress. So that's important because it's important for federally and at the state level, both, in this case federally, for audiologists to be recognized for all of the things that they do as clinical doctoring professionals, okay? And that sets the standard for how everybody else treats audiology, all right, for better or worse. The way that Medicare views a profession is the way that other payers will view that profession. So we want to make sure that we're optimized in that space. And that's really important for independent practice. I would say the vast majority of ADA members are predominantly treating older adults. Okay, not universally, but predominantly. And so it's a very important facet of what we do. And certainly older adults are people who need audiology services in a large number, right? It's at exactly the time they're entering Medicare. It's the time when they, in a lot of cases, need audiology services the most that they'll ever need them in their life. So that's really important. The other thing that's really, really important, though, is how are we, again, professionally socializing students coming in? What is their perception of independent practice? What is the view of independent practice that they're getting at the university level, right? How is them being in a clinic that's owned by an audiologist changing that view? And how are audiologists working with them to make sure that when they leave or when they're, going through their fourth year externship, that they're getting the right perceptions about what it means to be a private practice owner. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that from the audiologist standpoint, because they're so impressionable. And the view that they get, whether they're there for their fourth year or whether they're there in a rotation, is going to be something that they're carrying with them as they make decisions about their own practice setting when they leave. So those are probably the two most important ways I feel like ADA is trying to impact and ensure the longevity of independent practice as a practice model. And we'd love to see it the preferred practice model, just the way that it is in dentistry, frankly.
Yeah, so interesting.
I love that. Well, I know there's a big we want to talk about the elephant in the room, right? Let's talk about what just recently happened with the letter from AAO and what ADA thinks about that, and what is your status on trying to make efforts to support, because that seems to be so against what we want for our profession. This is making us look like we're not qualified, and we don't know what we're doing, and we don't know how to even diagnose a hole in an eardrum. So let's talk about that a little bit.
All right. Well, let's start with the good news. The good news is that the AAO H&S letter was based on not a single fact. Okay. So the argument against this reimbursement issue that audiology has under Medicare Part B, it's simply that. It's a reimbursement issue. It's not a scope of practice issue. So let's talk just for a couple minutes, if you'll indulge me, about what the bill will do, what it won't do, and what the need is. Okay. So the Medicare Audiology Access Improvement Act is necessary because Medicare's statutes are wholly outdated in the way that audiology is reflected there. So right now, audiology services are in this category called diagnostic other. Okay, so they are in the same place where you would find blood work and where you would find imaging and where you'd find other diagnostic testing, even though Medicare covers services that audiologists are licensed to deliver on the treatment side when they're delivered by other providers. So things like cerumen removal, right? Vestibular rehab, oral rehab, all things that Medicare already covers, all things that audiologists are licensed to do. But because of audiology's location within the statute, they're not recognized by Medicare to be able to be reimbursed for them, which is a huge disservice to the beneficiary because it forces the beneficiary to get shuffled back and forth along the continuum of care to get the service that they need. Okay. The second thing is, and we believe that this is partly born from the first thing, okay? In most cases, beneficiaries who suspect that they have a hearing or balance problem have to get an order before they can go seek treatment from the audiologist. Now, CMS made some changes in 2023 that do allow, in a limited set of circumstances, the beneficiary to go straight to the audiologist. But we believe that order requirement is sort of born out of the fact, again, that audiology is in this diagnostic other location. You need an order for blood work, you need an order for imaging, so why, according to Medicare's thinking, wouldn't you need an order for the other thing that's listed there? So it's really about, we believe, not intentional, but very archaic laws that put audiologists in this place. The other thing is that because audiologists right now are the only clinical doctoring professionals that are not in a category other than supplier within the Medicare Part B system. So every other clinical doctor is either recognized as a physician, as a practitioner, or as a therapist. They're on some other list. Audiology is sort of in this outlying area that makes it left behind when other pieces of legislation happen. It could be telehealth related, it could be HIPS related, it could be a lot of different things, but they're always scrambling to sort of put audiology back into the mix. Okay. So we want to fix all of those problems. And I'm going to contend that most physicians, and in fact, most ENTs who work with audiologists also would, from a practical standpoint, like these problems to be fixed. They would like their colleagues and their employees to be able to be reimbursed for all of the services that they're licensed and trained to perform. So I think at some level, not only was the letter not based on fact, I don't think it's even based on the opinion of most ENTs or physicians. Okay, so let's put that in its place too, and we'll get back to that in a minute in the response. But what the legislation will do is simply reclassify audiology services and reclassify audiologists so that beneficiaries who suspect they have a hearing or balance problem can go directly to the audiologist, just like they do with any other payer, with any other program, government or otherwise. And so that that audiologist can provide the diagnostic and treatment services that they're already licensed to deliver in every single state, just like they do with any other payer and any other program, government or otherwise. So when somebody says that this is a scope of practice issue, dead wrong. When somebody says that this is a patient safety issue, dead wrong. Okay, there is no patient safety issue here. Patients have been going to audiologists directly from birth through end of life already. If they're private pay, no one has a challenge with this. If they have Medicare Advantage, no problem. They can go directly to the audiologist. So it seems like physicians are only concerned when it's a Medicare Part B issue and no other issue, which I think also lends me to believe that maybe it's actually a money issue or there's some other turf issue that's impacting their judgment, because it certainly isn't based on evidence. So when we wrote the response, so were we happy with the letter? No. But were we happy with the opportunity to respond to it? Yes. Because it gave us the chance to actually put the facts out in the universe. We were able to look at AAO-HNS has a wonderful array of clinical practice guidelines, all of which recognize audiologists and the wonderful work that they do and the independent work that they do. So the site, numerous clinical practice guidelines and a lot of other things that AAO-HNS has said in its own right to be able to sort of refute the unfair commentary that they had made. We look so forward to sharing that with members of Congress as needed and sharing our thoughts on their letter with members of Congress. But I think the great thing is that everyone is sort of taking it in stride. I don't think it's carrying any weight because it's such an off-the-wall letter. But you know what does carry weight is the breadth and depth of the coalition that's working on this. So for the first time this year, AARP has endorsed this legislation, guys. This is so huge. HLAA endorses it. HIA,
so great.
Rural Health Clinic Association, all of the audiology organizations. So let's sort of just kind of put it in perspective and say, look, great opportunity for us to also go out and retell the story the right way. Also good for us to know where they stand. But also more important than ever for audiologists to understand that now is the time that we can get this across the finish line. That letter came from a place of desperation, if you ask me, because it's not based on any facts. So now's the time that everyone should be signing up. Come to ADA Lobby Day, get with your congressman, call me. I can help you get a virtual appointment with the office if you need that. But now's the time we should be putting our foot on the gas, ladies, to get this done.
I would say my question to that is, you say, let's get involved, everybody get out there and do the things. Young audiologists, even more seasoned audiologists, I feel like they think this sounds really great. What can I do? How do I get involved? Go to ADA. Everyone should go to ADA. I love ADA. Everyone should go to Lobby Day, but like what else? What is a simple thing that somebody could do to get more involved in this?
Yeah. So at the most basic level would be to figure out who your congressman or your legislator is, if you don't already know, your senator and your congressperson, and get in touch with them in some form or fashion. So ADA has tools and resources on our website. If people want to get a hold of me, and I'm going to put this out there too, you don't have to be an ADA member for ADA to help you advocate for the right things. Okay. So if for whatever reason you're not a member today, you can still reach out to me. Our lobbying firm can help you set up a virtual meeting with your legislative offices in your state. We have all the talking points, the tools. I can attend the meeting virtually with you if you want to do that. I will say, if you have a mind to and you're available, come to Lobby Day. We also, you don't have to be a member to do that, and you don't have to even come to the conference to do that. So
Well, that's really good to know, Stephanie, because I
Yeah.
don't think that most people realize
Well,
that they didn't need to be a member to be
yeah.
able to participate.
So we'll train them, put them in a group. So you're not assigned to go to meetings by yourself and do all kinds of things all on your own. You have a group, you have talking points, you have training, and you have everything you need. And I will say, it is not only a great way to advocate on this particular issue, but it's a great way to create relationships so that when we need advocacy on issues down the road, those relationships are there. And it's also a phenomenal way to network with your colleagues and create those systems for the future so that when everyone goes back to their own states, they've got people that they can call and say, hey, this is going on in my state. What's going on in yours? How did we handle that? So you make your friends maybe at this one federal advocacy day, but you keep those friends for all your state advocacy work too.
Yeah, I love
Well,
that.
Alex and I were joking that I met Alex. The first time I met Dr. Alex Tarvin was when I was a student. I was put in her advocacy group for Lobby Day. And I think, especially as a student, you feel
Oh,
like,
I love
who
that.
am
Yeah,
I to talk to these legislators? But you do the debriefing before we go out. So you really get your talking points. It gives you
right.
the confidence. And if you're not confident being the one talking, someone else in your group will. But
Yeah,
just being a part of it, to
Yeah.
hear the words and to feel like you're making a change is so neat as a young audiologist. And now as a provider and a practice owner, I'm going again. And I feel like
right.
now I have a voice and I have like, I'm dug in a little bit deeper than I was as a student. And I think it's just so important.
And
Yeah.
we have more than 40 students coming
That's
already
amazing.
Lobby Day. And, one of the key messages is, hey, they're training for 8 years to learn how to be a good clinical doctoring professional. They need to be able to go out and help people.
Yeah.
If we want to continue to make audiologists in the future, they have to have an understanding that they're going to be able to implement everything that they've been trained to do.
Right. And I think it's hard to get people to want to be in the audiology profession because they hear all this negative back and forth that's been going on, and they're worried that they're not going to have a profession to to be part of.
Yeah.
I would say that now is one of the most best opportunities to be an audiologist, but you're absolutely right. We have to continue. We have to keep our foot on the gas. The other thing that's so great is when we take them with us, if they're meeting with legislators and those legislators learn that these students are coming from a training program in their state, that has a huge impact on their thinking because, of course, they want all of the students to be able to graduate and find good jobs when they get
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah, oh, I love
And they
that.
hope to keep them in the state
Yeah, and
too.
stay in their state. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And
So
then
yeah,
you said something about doing, if you can't go, that we could reach out to you and do something virtually. So what
yes.
would be the options for those people that can't go?
Yeah, so if they will just contact me or contact info@audiologist.org, someone will get them in the right place for me. We will actually work with our lobbying folks to get them a Zoom meeting with the congressional staff. And I have found really ever since the COVID-19 pandemic, congressional staff is more than happy to meet with people via Zoom. The other thing that we can do, August is coming right up. It's right around the corner. There is an August recess for Congress where every congressperson will be back in their home district. So we can work to try to set up appointments for them back at home. They all have offices in their district. And from time to time, we've even been successful at getting a practice tour, getting a senator or a congressman to come to somebody's practice and actually tour the practice, see what an audiologist does, see the impact that they're making on their patients' lives.
Oh, I
Great.
love that. I
Yeah.
know I did the virtual one during COVID, and I was great because it helped. I don't know why I would be timid about doing something like that, but I was like, am I going to say the right thing? And but just the training that you all provided for us, and then being just able to talk to them, and they're just regular people. There's nothing to be worried about or anything. So I
Well,
think that
yeah,
that it's just a great experience to be involved in it.
it is. And the other thing that a lot of these folks is really top of mind for them is small business. So when they find out that you're not, yeah, you're a clinician and that's really important. And yes, maybe you graduated from one of the universities in their district, that's important. But when they recognize that you're a small business owner and that you're employing other people in your community, they want to make sure they're helping you overcome the challenges that come with that.
I love it. Well, you know what? I know we have so much more that we could talk about, but I think that we need to probably wrap it up here. So do you want to just do a last, like, what is the main message other than everything that we've talked about? What would be the last thing that you would want somebody to take away from this conversation?
My main message for audiologists is that just like keeping your clinical skills up is something that you must do as a professional, I would say advocacy is one of those things that is a professional responsibility for audiologists to be doing. And I would say it starts at home. Join your state association. If you can't make it out, write a check. Okay. If you can do both, great, but minimally, you need to be funding the advocacy efforts in your state, and you need to be participating to make sure that your state association is sound and solid, because a lot of the challenges that are faced by audiologists from a licensing standpoint, those are all going to be handled at the state level. So if there's no other message you take away from me today, it's advocate, and advocacy starts at home.
Love it. Love it.
Love that.
Right?
Join your state organization.
Yes, join your state organization.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Oh,
You
Thank you
Stephanie,
for joining us.
thank you. And we know we are in good hands with you. You just are so knowledgeable and such a great, you give such a great message to support private practice audiologists. So we
And I
really
feel like such an
appreciate it.
exciting year to be an audiologist and so many
Yeah.
great changes coming.
It's a
Persistence.
it's
We're
a great
getting there.
time. Yeah.
And for private practice. Go
Yeah.
private practice.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank you.
Stephanie.
And we will meet again soon.
All right.
See you, everybody.
See you next time.